The guest speakers today are Jacob Yakuba Bogra, Executive Director of the Association for Africans Living in Vermont, Deb Ashante, a community member, Sandrine Kabui, Associate Director at Champlain Valley Office of Economic Opportunity, and Pam Favreau, Director of Vermont Tenants. Thank you all so much for joining us today for this important discussion. Jacob, go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon. And I'm going to talk primarily on how to staff and start the immigration legal assistance program. And my hope is to demonstrate how case management can help your immigration system, and also understand the different staffing options that are available when you want to start this program. So we can go to the next one. And also, between this also we will talk about the function of the immigration staff, how you can hire and retain your staff with consideration that you will not be able to get all the resources. And when you are working with staff limited resources, how you can really maximize on your staffing consideration and also work on supervision, and how you can also look at outside the resources like using volunteers to help you. So the next slide, I'm going to talk about the range of options that are available for nonprofits to start the immigration program. And we, as a nonprofit, can employ different options like working with an attorney, working with law students, working with BIA accredited staff that can be fully or partially accredited, and also look at the outside support like a non-accredited staff like on the immigration support staff, and also other possibility like a development and intern. And as I said, we have all these options that are available. But when you are looking at that also, you have to think about the credential. What are the credentials that are needed for your staff? What type of training and job readiness skills they might have? Are they able to communicate with the client? This would be the language skill, and looking at other responsibilities when you are working with staff. So you can go to the next slide. So, and when you are doing that also, look at the possibility of having funding to work within your organization, and how you will be able, once you train these folks, to retain them if you don't want to be wasting your money. We can go to the next slide. If you are working with an attorney, there are always pros and cons. And some of the pros are how you can have someone who can handle complex cases, making sure that the person you are working with is fully registered and is able to help you also increase your capacity. And some of the cons pertain to the cost also. Obviously, working with an attorney would cost more because the person needs to be paid. And would the person be able to communicate and handle staff, your clients? Because sometimes you have people who are grumpy, and you need to have someone who has some people skills to be able to deal with different type of attitude when they are working with clients. We can go to the next slide. As I said, when you are looking for an attorney, make sure that this person is in good standing also, because sometimes people might not be in good standing, and this can impact your program also. And the experience of the person would matter, and is the person also able to work on case management? You can go to the next slide. Besides that, the attorney working with accredited representative can be also another option. And what that mean? It's someone who has received permission from the Board of Immigration Appeal to work on and represent clients. And this can be done through hiring someone who has previous experience or retraining your staff. And also, when you are training, you need to think about the possibility of how you will retain this person. It doesn't make sense to train someone who is going to leave in a month. Sometimes it's difficult to prevent people from leaving, but you have to have this honest discussion, because when you have limited resources, you have to be mindful on what you are investing. You can go to the next slide. And if you are looking at training consideration, make sure that your person has some level of interest in immigration work. It doesn't make sense to train someone who would not be interested in what he is doing. And also making sure that the person is up to the task, which means that you need to be attentive to detail, well organized, and also have good writing skills, and able also to advocate for clients. And of course, communicating clearly with clients also could help when you have someone who doesn't speak English. You can go to the next one. Of course, when you are like ALV, for example, and one-person program, there are always challenges that would appear down the road. And that means that you have to be able to make contacts with other practitioners to support and guide your program. In our case, for example, Michelle has hardly worked with other people to have them as advisory, in an advisory capacity, for example, which means that if you are not able to have answers, you should have someone who can provide you with information or help you deal with complex cases. And also this would mean that setting up a regular case review, meeting with other nonprofits, and also consider formal or informal consulting relationships with outside attorneys, and also use a national network and listservs. So we can go to the next slide. And in our case, for example, we register affiliate with clinic, and this network provides us with pro bono attorneys that can help us if we come across cases that are really difficult to handle and we don't have any answer. Of course, when you are working with staff, you have to make sure that you have the ability to look at supervision. This supervision can be legal and non-legal. And the legal part will be overseeing the legal work, looking at the case management, and also looking at other staff if you are mostly working with volunteers in your case. You can go to the next one. When you are working at volunteers, which that can be helpful because you have folks who can help, non-legal partner who can help support your program. And this legal support also can be through pro bono attorneys or other law students, for example, that can volunteer their time. You can go to the next one. And it is really important to consider something when you are looking at volunteers, making sure that you are really thorough in selecting them, making sure that they have the right training and they are able to keep confidentiality. And someone would supervise them. And also on the long run, based on the climate within your organization, you can retain them so they can continue to provide support to your organization. In our case, for example, when I'm talking about confidentiality, immigration cases are really sensitive. If you have someone who cannot respect this, it will be really difficult to work with clients. You can go to the next one. And also, how you will be able to retain volunteers is through good organization, good backup plans, not only having one person who would leave in a month and will fall short again. Making sure that there is a good communication between the organization or the supervisor and this volunteer. And also be able to acknowledge their work, formally or informally. And if they are doing great, always be mindful to that and remind them that what you are doing is for a greater cause. And seeing also with them how you can contribute to the training and also have a communal spirit that can maintain a good atmosphere within your organization. You can go to the next one. When you are using a law student also, they can be helpful mostly when they're out of school during the break. They can help with consultation, doing some intake, reviewing some cases, and following up with a client's appointment, like if they have to go to the immigration for fingerprints, for example, or interview when they are petitioning for their asylum cases. And also do some legal research for cases you might not have clear answer. These students are really great in helping go through this material and giving you some clear advice that you can share with your clients. And making sure that if you have clients who cannot speak English, you can help them with translation and interpretation. They might have documents that are in foreign language that need to be translated in English, and they might not be speaking English. Someone needs to help them communicate with your attorney or your staff member. And making sure that you have this ability to help them get the right translation and the right communication would be really helpful to avoid mistakes. And this student also can always help the client be ready for the interview, just preparing them before they go for the interview. You can go to the next one. And when you have a staff member also, you need to think about their development and their training. And who within your staff member would need training is one of the first questions you should ask yourself. And what type of training the person would need to be successful in his work, when and where also this training can be done. Nowadays, we have the ability to do training either on site, if you go to a specific conference, or do that through some of the online training mechanisms that are available. And these also options are meant to maximize on your cost. If you don't have enough resources, you have to think how you will invest on your staff training and making sure that they're up to date. We can go to the next one. And as I said, some of the training can be done through the online portal. And in our case, for example, we, as affiliate of Clinic, the Catholic Legal Immigration Network, we can access some of their training or pay at a lower rate the training opportunity that are offered online. That can be done either at your own pace or signing up at for some of the webinars that are available. And also looking at archived documents or webinars and presentations that can always help your staff progress. And you can look at some of their websites and check with them also how to become affiliate. If you don't want to become affiliate, you can also pay at cost and attend some of their training. And some of the resources are right here. And there are more resources that are always available. You can go to the next one. Yeah, you can go to the next slide. Yeah. And these are the resources that can always help, as I said. So if you need help, you can always check with them and they will be able to help you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacob. Right now, the next topic that we will be talking about would be renting challenges and solutions. And I will give the floor to Pam, who will be giving us solutions to those programs and challenges. Pam?
Thank you, Sandrine. I'm going to speak briefly today on 3 different topics. There are obviously many topics I could go on about, but really I want to try to look at 3 areas that our experience of Vermont tenants show us are consistently hot-button topics in working with new Americans. One is barriers to finding housing. The second thing I'm going to talk about is substandard housing. And then, the availability of access to information about landlord-tenant rights and responsibilities at the right time. I'm going to start with barriers to housing. Now, it's a given that there are many barriers, but what I really want to talk about is barriers to decent, safe, affordable housing for starters. And what we find consistently is that large barriers are lack of housing references and lack of a credit history. Both things that are often difficult to explain, let alone help somebody that's new in this country establish. So there's a couple of aspects on the work that my program sees to make some change in these areas. The first one is, what can you do about the fact that someone doesn't have a housing reference? And we're approaching it from two different angles. One, Vermont Tenants has, for the past couple of years, been providing a program that we refer to as Rent Right. And during that, we are teaching all people, but definitely focusing on the New American population, the skills of being a tenant, of finding housing, of applying for housing, of applying for the right kind of housing that you have the best chance of getting. We have entered into an agreement with Champlain Housing Trust, CHT, that we're presently using in Franklin, Grand Isle, and Chittenden counties, and going to expand into Addison County soon. And what we have done is basically, when an applicant, any applicant, but particularly new Americans, apply to Champlain Housing Trust for an apartment, if they have no housing references, then Champlain Housing Trust hooks them up with my program. And what we basically do is put them through a tenant skills class. And as part of the agreement we have now, Champlain Housing Trust will accept that they're taking this class in lieu of them having a housing reference. So we've been able to eliminate that barrier. But I think it also really leads to conversations about public advocacy on everybody's part, all of us working with new Americans, in that we most commonly see this barrier in the nonprofit housing sector. And so in effect, they have a self-created barrier. And we certainly understand the reason to be able to check references on any tenant moving in. But when there's an entire population that just does not have that, and it's a given that they're not going to have that, we really encourage those nonprofit housers to look in-house at their own system. Don't make an automatic assumption that because you don't have a reference, you will be a poor tenant. And to continue to work with us to find ways to set up a system where basically applicants don't need to jump through a hoop just to get their application accepted. So we're working in the immediate to help get people housed. It's working, and people are becoming housed in good nonprofit housing. And we just continue to work with how can we work closer to change your in-house system in a way that you're comfortable with and gets people what they need. In the same way, the lack of credit history. If somebody is applying at Champlain Housing Trust and they have no credit history, they can certainly do Champlain Housing Trust Ready, Set, Rent program. But for people, new Americans in general, who are applying for housing everywhere, and their barrier is a lack of credit history, CBOEO's Financial Futures program is providing classes very similar to the Rent Right ones to help new Americans establish credit and good credit so that that barrier can be removed as well. So between the two, we've got two of the major barriers moved aside. We're really hoping to start looking at train-the-trainer things, and I'll get into that in a bit. So the next thing I really want to speak to is substandard housing. And what you really find is, because of some of the barriers in place concerning housing references and credit history, it means that a lot of new Americans go out to the private sector, and they tend to end up in apartments that are substandard housing. One of the ways that we work on addressing this is, as most of us know, there are codes, there are rental housing health codes, and there are life safety codes about the condition of any rental unit. And those are overseen by code enforcement offices and municipalities and town health officers in the towns and around the state. It's a requirement by law that they all have them. We at Vermont Tenants have worked very hard and continue to work to develop good working relationships and partnerships with those enforcement programs, so that when we're working with a new American who's literally living in a place that's not safe or just simply needs repairs done that aren't being made, we can get in the middle and not only help the tenant understand how to make the system work for themselves, but at the same time be a representative and advocate for that tenant to these health officers to help them understand what needs to be done in the apartment. And the second part of dealing with the substandard housing is to also help new Americans as they're arriving understand that there are codes and there is an expectation of what's considered okay in terms of safe and decent housing in this state, and that it's not just up to the landlord whether or not they want to make repairs and improve the living situation, that there are requirements for it. Often we work with new Americans that just have no concept whatsoever for there actually being a law that can make their landlord repair something that needs to be done. So the more we can help hook up community organizations like AALV and other associations in the area with health officers and to help them understand that, yes, they're often, designated by a government, but they're there to really help, and they have the authority to make sure things are fixed. And really one of the biggest pieces that we see happening at Vermont Tenants and have seen for many years is that it's difficult for newly arriving new Americans to access information about their rights and responsibilities as tenants. And it's a given. Certainly, coming in an orientation process, there's so much going on. There's so much overwhelming. There's so much new to learn. It's not necessarily the place to begin this process, but because of that, what we're seeing is people new to this country are being placed into housing with no understanding of this. And what's happening on the other side is that when they're ready to leave that housing, it's not just that they're losing security deposits. They're being hit with bills above the security deposit for thousands and thousands of dollars. I've seen them for as high as $12,000. And we really see two reasons inherent in this. One is a basic education on the responsibility of reporting repair needs before the situation and damage becomes worse. Not understanding even sometimes basic things like the best way to use appliances or more information about plumbing systems, and certainly about infestations. And so what's happening is totally just through lack of education about America and housing and codes, new Americans are actually being able to inadvertently contribute to housing code violations and to damage in the property that will cost the landlord money. At the same time, we also see a small but select group of landlords that I would almost refer to as predatory, that they understand that these new Americans coming in don't realize you can call a code enforcement officer or that you can stand up for your rights. I've worked with families that literally, complained to the landlord about something wrong in their apartment, and the landlord said, "That's it, I want you out by this weekend." And the family moved. So now we have a homeless new American family because they simply didn't understand that there were options available to them. So, change slides, Andrea. We really try to continue to work with other organizations to get that information out to new Americans as quickly as possible. One of the things that we're just starting to launch is we have met with Jacob and AALV staff, and we have offered to train the trainers for other organizations, be it community associations like the Somali Bantu Community Association or through nonprofits like AALV or VRRP, to train the trainers to teach our rent right classes so they can teach them amongst their own community and to their own people in a way that can take into account the cultural perspective and also be able to, by working with us, relay the correct information in terms of the law. So it's new. We're just starting it, and hopefully we'll be back sometime to let people know how that's going. And Sandrine, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Pam. Thank you very much. And we will now go over our next topics of the day, which is the post-secondary education, recognition foreign qualification professional recognition. But before getting into discussing this, I wanted to go over some background information about new Americans in Vermont. As you know, Vermont is 90% actually composed of a white population, and the most diverse and growing population that we are seeing arriving in Vermont are refugees. We are expecting to, we settled for the year 2015 about 325, and 227 refugees have been settled in 2014. And I would now go over the subject of the day, which is post-secondary education and recognition of foreign qualification and professional recognition. But it is really an introduction to the next subject that Deb will be talking about today, which is the employment opportunities for skilled workers. We all know that, especially for our population, New American population in Vermont, that most of them have no education at all, or very few. But I really would like to talk today about those who actually have some degree of education. We, as a community, especially here in Chittenden County, and I'm going to take here the example of the Burlington School District, who have implemented programs to really prepare their students, New American students and parents for a transition to college. First of all, what I would like to do is to give you some information on the education level of immigrants. Unfortunately, I didn't have the chance to get specific data information on the level of education of refugees specifically. But looking at the numbers nationally, we are seeing that adult immigrants between the age of 25 and 65, that 28.5% of them have not completed high school. And I do believe that everybody knows that financial security and really upbringing and success in social in the U.S. is really based on the level of education. And also we are seeing here that the level is pretty low for adult immigrants. We have 25.7 who have a high school diploma only, 16.5 have just some college education, 29.3 have at least a bachelor's degree or higher. About 23% of all undergraduates for the year 2007-2008 were composed of 10% of immigrants and 30% of secondary Americans. So that means that they had at least one parent immigrant. In Vermont, since we our like I said, growing population that's really is struggling right now are mostly refugees. And the fact that they have no education or very little, of course, they have difficulty accessing post-secondary education. And when I speak of that, I'm really looking at not only to acquire the high school diploma, but also to get into college or the university. And the difficulty accessing this post-secondary education is mostly based on and caused by social economic constraints. You know that they are low income or very, very low income, and paying for higher education in the country is pretty expensive. We all know that. Limited access to information, and this goes along with unreadiness. So English as a second language is it's a very big barrier when it comes to not only being able to go through the process of applying and succeeding in completing a degree or a program in college or at the university, but also knowing the system. It is a very hard process to go through, especially when you do not have the language readiness or the understanding on the process in order for you to access to it. And that's why an orientation and training of parents and students to acquire those skills is very, very important. And it has to be done as soon as possible. I was talking earlier about the Burlington School District. They have a few programs that they are implementing right now, such as the EAL Success summer program, where they really are trying to prepare students and parents by visiting and orienting them and training them on how to access higher education. And this providing, of course, some language skills and readiness. We have also the Vermont Adult Learning, who has a path to high school graduation, which is a program that's really focused on getting new Americans going through their English as a second language courses to get to the level of being able to get their high school diploma. And I also have the transition into college, and this is done, of course, through orientation and training. So like I was saying, there is the importance of education, but how actually Vermont and specifically Chittenden are really working very hard on making this possible for new Americans. I was about to continuing the subject on post-secondary education, and really transition to the next my next subject, which is recognition of foreign qualification and professional qualification. Although most of the refugees do not have a lot of schooling, some of them do. And what happened to those qualifications that they have acquired, education that they acquired over back home? There is ways to really help them have them recognized here in the U.S. It is a big process, and this slide here explain. Really, I'm going to read it because it is self-explanatory. That the competent U.S. authority for recognizing previous education and qualification, including licenses in the regulated professions, is the appropriate state, territories, administrative authority that regulates the profession in the jurisdiction where you are intended to live and work. So basically, it's the states and territorial licensing. For the state of Vermont, it would be the Secretary of State Department, and I do believe that I have a slide that will give you the resource in order for you to access to it if need be. The process, specifically about the recognizing the foreign qualifications, here in the U.S., those competent U.S. authority that recognize those qualifications will be U.S. schools and or higher education institutions, and this is where you enroll. And for that, I would say UVM might be able to do that for you, or the schools will also be able to do that. And there are some institutional schools that perform them themselves, but mostly they are referred to credential evaluation services. And on the last slide, I was about to talk to you about professional recognition, which really is the introduction to the next subject. There is a lot of immigrants that comes here and refugees that come with professional qualifications from back home. And of course, they have to be licensed for, and specifically for professions such as medical and electrical and such. There is 50 fields that are licensed in all U.S. states and territories. Not all of them actually are able to be recognized here. The best way to make sure that it is or not, and ways to get solutions and for your license to be recognized would be to consult your state licensing board and professional associations for that. Like I was saying, when it comes to professional recognition and even foreign qualifications, please go to the Secretary of State website. They have a lot of information about ways to be able to go about this process. So the nearest credential evaluation service provider, because I told you earlier that in order for your qualifications, foreign qualifications to be recognized, or even your professional license, it needs to be evaluated and recognized. So our nearest in New England here is the North American Education Group. Here's the website. They are located in Massachusetts, which is not too far. The pricing for notarized translation ranges between $65 and $185, depending on what document you need translated. And also, it takes about 10 business days for you to be able to get the documentation received. So I'm going to turn over to Deb. She will be talking to us today about employment opportunities for skilled workers. Deb?
Thank you, Sandrine. I am going to apologize in advance because we don't have much time left, but I'll try and be specific. So in this section, in this section, I'll be talking about the barrier between New American community and the employment field. And we'll be looking at possible ways to widen access to high-skilled job opportunities for educated and talented newcomers. The point today, the point under this subject is employment barriers and general impact, pathway to appropriate job placement. The need to be proactive in addressing this situation is to avoid the waste of time and to facilitate a successful integration of new American in their new land. The statistics show that about 30% of new Americans arrive with a bachelor's degree or a higher level of education, like Sandrine was saying. And also, it shows that new American creates 28% of businesses in America, only solely based on the skills and the past work experience. We're going to tap into the first subject of this section, which is the employment barriers. Number one is barrier from both sides, from the employer and the newcomer side. So first of all, I'm going to talk about what is it blocking the employers from hiring the new Americans. And some of employers are not quite ready to embrace diversity. And there's also the fact that they don't trust the knowledge coming from other countries, which create bias. Secondly, on the side of the new Americans, there's the non-recognition of foreign qualification or license. There's the lack of work experience and the lack of language skills in the most cases. The third point is the dilemma. While some new skilled Americans lack an accredited college degree that would qualify them for a high-skilled job opportunity, they have plenty of experience and expertise that is often disregarded. New Americans must accept job opportunities that are available, and very few are able to venture behind low-skilled job opportunities. Now I am going to the second point of this section, which is the general impact. Looking at this, I tried to compare the low-skilled jobs to the high-skilled jobs, and what you can see is that helping skilled new Americans find appropriate employment not only will increase financial security and promote higher living standards, but also it will promote a successful integration of the local government budget. On the other side, the low-skilled job not only increases poverty level and slower the integration process, but also over the course of years, new Americans will acquire a new kind of barrier, which is the skill gap. With some exception, I would say in general, educated immigrants from Latin American, Eastern Europe, and African countries are most likely to end up in unskilled jobs. The third point is the pathway to appropriate job placement for skilled new Americans. We need funding to build a bridge connection what I mean here is a mentorship program that will support and give guidance to new Americans and help them achieve their career goal. This program will include increasing the support system available in Vermont right now, and also the professional training and placement, accreditation system and the personal development of individuals who are seeking jobs in America. The other point under this category will be the networking with all agencies that share the same goal. And finally, we need to raise the awareness of the importance of fixing this problem. In the end, again, I apologize, I don't have much time. It is crucial to the wellness of the community and the workforce as a whole that skilled new Americans are properly placed in jobs that maximize their potential so that they can become productive member of the society. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Deb.
Well, thank you so much. We have some questions coming in. So first of all, one of the questions, when you're talking about new Americans, are you just talking about refugees, or are you talking about other folks as well? And if you could talk a little bit about the race and ethnicity makeup of new Americans in Vermont versus the United States.
Yes. When I was talking about new Americans in Juneau, I was definitely speaking of immigrants and refugees, asylees, the undocumented, and when it comes to the racial makeup of the new American community in Vermont, we have here a slide that shows us basically what it is composed of. You have in Vermont 94% of whites compared to 63% of in the U.S.
I guess one of the questions is, how does that balance happen, and why is it so different in Vermont versus the United States? Why is it higher?
I do believe that immigrants started arriving to Vermont, and like I said, when it comes to immigration in Vermont, most of the immigrants coming to live in Vermont, residing in Vermont, are from Canada, and secondly is the UK. And although in a few centuries we have seen blacks and Hispanic and Asian of England immigrating here in Vermont.
Get the next question. So you have, out of the categories of people, how many can get like public benefits, like 3 Squares Vermont, temporary reach up, those public benefits? Are they available for refugees and for other categories, or how does that work?
Okay, so in order for you to get any federal or state benefits, you need to have an immigrant legal status. If you're illegal, it's very difficult for you to be eligible for any other of the benefits. So when it comes to the composition of the new American community here in Vermont, mostly refugees are eligible for those services, and immigrants as well. And it depends on the level of benefit that you are allowed to get. Oh, there are some that actually they
okay.
do. But yeah. I
That's the law.
So a participant was mentioning that there's some immigrants that are not eligible for some benefits, and it depends depending on the classification actually you fall under. So what I was trying to say is that refugees who are actually our growing community here in Vermont are eligible for federal and state benefits.
Pam, I think this question is probably for you. Is rent right available statewide?
It is not right now. Right now it's available in Chittenden, Addison, Franklin, and Grand Isle counties. We are currently working on putting together a package whereby we would basically create a train-the-trainer, a rent-right instructor certification program. Well, we are planning and hoping to travel to other counties and areas of the state. And for interested people from any types of organizations, including solid community volunteers, and certainly working with other CAP organizations to certify people in teaching this. So that's in our goals coming up for the next year.
That's great. So if somebody wants to get it in their area, they are asking, should they call you?
They should give a call to Vermont Tenants, yes, and ask to speak to me specifically.
Okay, just another one, is the Vermont Tenants Guide available in other languages?
Right now, the Vermont Tenants book, Renting in Vermont, isn't available at all. We're currently in the process of writing a new one. It will be out by the end of June, so next month. It's more of a guidebook and workbook than the old book has been. It's very different. It will have a new name. But in addition to that, what we've done is we've assembled trifold handouts of the basic rights and responsibilities of all renters and of all landlords, and we have those available in a variety of languages.
Deb, this one may be for you or any of the panelists. What job-ready tools and resources are available for new Americans? What job-ready tools and resources are available for new Americans? I think this is saying for new Americans coming here, I think you talked about some partnerships with maybe the community college. Are there other things like that, like where new Americans are going to be job-ready?
Right. There is the Vermont Refugee Program. They have a program that help with the job readiness, and there is Recycle, which also the Vermont Adult Learning.
If I can add to that, job ready, it depends on how you define job ready. When you speak of an immigrant who doesn't speak English, in order for him to be ready to do a job, it depends on what kind of job you speak of. Exactly. We have ALV, VRP. We have a lot of organizations that really provide employment counseling, and this actually include a job search and retention. But like Deb was talking about, a new program for new Americans that is run by Resource called the Helping Hand, really focused on youth refugees only. Refugees only, to really help them acquire skills and orient them to a path of getting suitable employment.
Great. Here's another connected question. You made a good case for why we should be working with new Americans to help them gain higher skilled jobs versus lower skilled jobs. Are there some successful examples of this in Vermont or elsewhere, especially for those new Americans without a bachelor's degree or certifications when they come to Vermont?
There are successes, of course, a few, and I'm one of them.
Yeah.
And actually, both these ladies are.
And Deb as well. I mean, we came in this country, we were not speaking English. Although we had some educational background, it had to be recognized here in the U.S., which is a very long process, depending on the higher education institution you choose to actually enroll in. I was lucky. I had the chance to get into a university that was definitely experience in recognizing foreign qualifications.
I think they meant successful programs, and it's great you have your own success as well.
I'd love to speak to that. Sure. So yes, there are definitely programs, and which they've already addressed, Deb and Sandrine, in terms of getting good pathways for new Americans into higher education and into good work programs. I think the thing that doesn't get recognized a lot is the assistance available. Certainly there is through our own organization, CBOEO, and our micro business program, that a great number of new Americans are actually becoming small business entrepreneurs instead of just looking for employment. And we see it everywhere: stores, markets, food trucks, a variety of different types of business, including a good number of them are becoming landlords. So there's not just the higher paying job range, there's the small business piece too. That there are an amazing number of new small business startup in our area.
And do we have a sense of how many new Americans are entering the country with degrees?
Unfortunately, like I said, I was not able to get specific information about Vermont. But in general, I do believe that I did give you some statistics here at the beginning of my presentation, showing you exactly the level at the national level. And I'm going to try to find this slide for you. Oh, it's there?
You got it. You can just maximize it.
There we go. Yeah.
There's another question. Can you suggest any financial resource to help pay for translation services?
Financial to pay for translation services. I do. Yes. Go ahead, Jacob.
I said I would like to point out through some of the emails that I was reading, looks like unrestricted resources that are available to support some kind of service. I want to point out, for example, to the immigration service we are starting, legal assistance program we are starting at AL. So we are really tied up with resources, and these resources we have also are designed to support a specific group of population. If, as some organizations have non-restricted funding that are available, maybe you can try to find a way to allocate that either through competitive application, so people can apply to increase the level of tech provision. And also to go back to some of the training opportunity, I think we have to understand that our country, mostly in Vermont, our state, things are changing. We should also think about how we can deliver services, including and taking in consideration our new population concerns also. Now, mostly in Chittenden County, our services are made for the usual and general population, white population. But as immigrants, we have to think about how we can contribute. And if the state wants us to contribute, they have also to tailor the services with this need.
You're breaking up, Jacob, you're breaking up a bit. It's hard to hear you. I think the phone's going a little bit in and out. So we're going to go on to another question. What should someone do? I think this is an important question. What should someone do if they feel they didn't get into an apartment because the landlord heard an accent when they inquired, or because their name identified them as a new American? That kind of.
Sure. And I'd be happy to speak to that. There are obviously fair housing laws. So there are federal fair housing laws. Vermont has protected categories above and beyond federal fair housing protected categories, and they should reach out for help. So they should talk to either our own fair housing program at CBOEO, or they can certainly, if they think they've been discriminated against, touch base with legal aid or the Vermont Human Rights Commission. Any of those places can help.
And just to end on a positive note, one person writes in that they have examples of lots of stories, successful stories of employment and program services. We were honored to have two people here who are success stories, and I want to thank you all very much. And again, this will be posted on our OEO website. Have a great afternoon, everybody.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.